Hello everybody and welcome. I am GhostCritic, of course you know that already, and today is Wednesday and normally I would be doing a new comic book day video, but I am not really here. I'm away celebrating my partner's birthday, and so I didn't want to leave you without a video. And if you are a loyal viewer and have watched the last few episodes, I have said that over the Christmas period I will be putting up some new videos, some going back to some old themes that I used to do, and as you can see already from the title, this is something new that if you're into, I could potentially do in the new year, and that's a top 10 video. And this particular one, as you can see from the title, is the top 10 Image comics of 2017. Now I'd like to preface that statement by saying these are my top 10 Image comics of 2017. So you may see your favourite comic book on here. It may not be at the position that you would have put it on yourself, but certainly these are my top 10 books. And I read a lot of Image books. I think I've got almost 20 going on, despite the fact that they have lots of hiatus often. But about 20 titles at the moment are on my pull list, are all Image comics. And why not? While DC and Marvel have been rebirthing themselves and plunging into their legacy, fighting off for the biggest events and doing all silly crossovers, Image have been stealthily building up a fantastic roster of not only titles but great creators, artists, colorists, inkers, you name it. They are not pulling their punches and haven't been for quite a few years. So I thought it was about time to give them some special love, and so here is my top 10 Image comics of 2017. Okay, so when you think of Image comics, there are certain genres that are very prevalent and have been over the last couple of years with Image. That's sci-fi, high concept fantasy, crime noir, thrillers, and the kind of post-apocalyptic universes. So it's surprising to see what is basically on the surface, if you just kind of glance at it, would look at a very kind of family-friendly issue or title, but it is far from that. Think of the kind of Warner Brother Looney Tunes cartoons, but on steroids. And you basically have Scotty Young's I Hate Fairyland, which comes in at number 10 in my rundown of Best Image Comics of 2017. Now, there only might have been 5 issues and this special edition that reprinted New Comic Book Day with a few extra pages tagged on the back this year, but every single issue has been fantastic. The great thing about Scotty Young is he doesn't take this title that seriously, in the sense that it likes to mock itself. It's very meta. We've had issues covering comic book conventions, we've had D&D, it's touched on the kind of samurai lore, and it even gives the opportunity for kind of side characters to have a whole issue to themselves and daydream about what life would have been like if they hadn't met this awful young girl who thought she was going to visit the most magical of places, Fairyland, but then gets stuck in it for decades and decades and basically turns into a psychopathic, mass murdering maniac, all just so she can escape and go back home. And it is just the most fantastic fun read you will have. Please, I would love you to go and pick these up in trades. It would be a glorious fun afternoon reading the adventures of Gertrude as she makes her way, or rather I should say swathes her way through Fairyland, full of kind of over-the-top blood and guts in a kind of cartoony Scotty Young style. It's fun, fun, fun all the way, and makes my number 10 spot. Now, Image Comics is very well known for its great creators that it puts on its books, and for the great artists that just create these magical, imaginative lands. The colorists they get, top notch, just creating these wonderful, vibrant environments that we just soak up issue after issue after issue. But then there are those books that are very stark, black and white, and deal in a kind of gritty manner, but like to play around with it as well. And in my number 9 slot for best comics of 2017 over at Image, it is David Lapham's Stray Bullets. It is a kind of crime noir story tale, but it just, the imagination of David Lapham, his control of the story that he is telling, despite the fact that you think, where is this going? David always knows exactly what direction he is taking all of his characters. It's incredibly dark, but on top of that, it's quite funny at times. Maybe you shouldn't laugh at some of the stuff on this. Again, it is that kind of over-the-top violence, but done at a very kind of real, hard-hitting level. I came to Stray Bullets kind of late on in its big run, and it's been going for years, but I was glad that I picked up Stray Bullets Killers, the previous volume to this, and that only lasted, I think it was about 6 issues. So to have Stray Bullets, Sunshine and Roses coming up to almost 30 issues now, it's just a joy. And the characters, you kind of, despite how awful they all are, there is no redeeming characters in here. There's no one that you really should be supporting, but you kind of fall in love with them, and they're kind of misadventures that almost veer into farce. This is just a great book that I love reading, and never know from one issue to the next what I'm gonna get. At number 8 in our countdown, we have Jonathan Hickman taking sci-fi to kind of veering over to almost Western territory. The old Wild West, but in a kind of post-apocalyptic sci-fi universe. And of course I'm talking about East of West, which had its detractors to begin with, basically due to the kind of slow moving, slow burn of a storyline right at the very beginning. And I think that was very unfair to Hickman on this book, because what he was doing was gradually building this world and letting us in issue by issue to what is kind of a full rounded title now. Again, with each issue, it just builds and builds these characters that it's set forth on this crazy sci-fi adventure. And you, again, it's one of those books where you don't really side with anyone, because they're all very kind of Machiavellian type characters. They've always got their own secret agenda. There may be allies going on with different provinces of the East of West universe, but at the end of the day, they're all looking out for number one. And however they manage to do that, however many people they have to like trample over, they will do it. Coupled with Dragotta and Martin on artwork, who have just been doing a stellar job on this title. This book just has improved in leaps and bounds, and that's again not to say that it was in any way terrible right at the very beginning. It's just gone with that slow burn, that slow ride of building the world, letting the reader adjust to this new environment and the new ethics and morals of all these characters. And there is a big cast, but you never feel incredibly lost at any point. Just a fantastic sci-fi book that looks at a kind of civil war from a kind of sci-fi stance. At number 7 in my countdown, and this particular title is a very personal book to me. I warmed to it right at the very first issue and have been a big champion for this book. It's a very quiet book. It's not full of superheroes. It's very a real day life, slice of life type of book, centering on a writer with writer's block who comes home to visit his father, who has been taken ill, and meeting back up with long lost relatives and families. I am of course talking about Jeff Lemire's Royal City, set in one of those kind of small towns that has kind of an industry that is keeping it going. But unfortunately, due to the modernisation of the industry, this particular town is starting to lose the business that keeps it running. And you centre on this one particular family who are in all their own ways trying to deal with the death of a son and or a brother. And their dysfunctionality in their own family unit, and in some respects, in many respects, I really kind of identify with a lot of these characters. It has, strangely enough, although it is this almost kind of slice of life, it has that kind of magical fantasy element to it, almost as supernatural, as we see each of the family members seeing the image, or the ghost, I would say, of said brother or son in different stages of their lives, and how they react to that kind of apparition. This is written, drawn, coloured, the whole caboodle from Jeff Lemire, and he is just a stunning writer that really kind of tugs at the heartstrings, and it's one of those titles that just make me kind of well up and maybe take a gulp of air every so often, because it's that personal to me. Now, I have to be honest and say that I'm not the greatest fan of all these comic book titles that are being optioned for TV shows. It feels very forced at sometimes with comic books that you read, and you know that they are writing this book with a look to a TV show, and it really does show on a lot of titles. So when you hear about one of your favourite comic books is going to be made into a TV show, it's always with a sense of trepidation. However, and this has already been optioned, I am very excited that Lazarus, which is my number 6 choice of top 10 Image Comics of 2017, is being made into a TV show. It's a perfect type of book for a TV show, in the sense that you have this post-apocalyptic world that is no longer governed by the government or a royal type family, but these are families of they're almost like kind of mafia style families that are running the world, and there is a kind of three-tier system to this world. You have the families that are the affluent, wealthy, rich who can do anything they want to, live in the lap of luxury. Then you have the kind of serfs. They're all the people that keep the world going, in the sense that the important jobs like doctors and scientists and nurses, and they're allowed to kind of be what they call lifted from the kind of general population, the waste as they call it, which obviously outnumber even the top two tiers, but stay in their position just trying to live their life from day to day under the government of these families. But there is it's a spy story, it's a thriller, it's just ripe for a serialized TV show where there are double dealings, there's war, there's a kind of like an army element in there, and there's romance in there as well, there's relationships between families, and it's just so well written by Greg Rucka and Michael Lark, who draws this as well. Just do a fantastic job in making this future world feel believable and could actually happen. Just a fantastic book. We've come to the halfway point, number 5 in my countdown of top 10 Image comics of 2017, and it's been written by a writer that we've already seen in a past rundown here, but it's so far removed from his previous title that I've already covered, and he still does a fantastic job on it. It's one of the kind of core sci-fi type books that Image are putting out at the moment. It's Jeff Lemire's Descender. This is another of those future world sci-fi stories where humanity at one point in their past was attacked by the robots of this world, and although they managed to kind of push them back, robots are basically outlawed now, and any time that they see robots they are destroyed, melted down. But there is a secret resistance of robots that are building an army and making themselves bigger for their return to wipe out humanity, just as humanity has done with the robots. It's centered on this young robotic boy, Tim, 21, and on his travels he accumulates a kind of group of humans who want robots and humans to basically live in harmony. Jeff Lemire has just finished off his kind of 5 or 6 issue story arc of Rise of the Robots, where the tables certainly have turned. We can't go without saying how fantastic the artwork by Dustin Nguyen has been on this book. It's like nothing you've seen really in a sci-fi title before. If you've seen any of my videos before, you will have heard me say that this isn't like your sharp, clean lines are kind of very sterile sci-fi type art. It's done in a very painterly, almost dreamlike manner, but it still suits the book so well, and with a wonderful array of characters that both Lemire and Nguyen create along the way. This is just a wonderful book to dive into. Again, another, if you've missed out on this at any point over the last few years, then find the trades and catch up quick. We hit number 4 with another sci-fi inspired title, this time from the ubiquitous guess you'd call him, an ever-present, I feel, in Image Comics, Rick Remender. It is a Black Science, a great sci-fi book that has been going for many years now. We're up to issue 32, despite its many hiatus it takes. But this is just another fantastic sci-fi book from Image Comics, as we centre around Grant, who is like this super scientist who has created what is a kind of dimension hopping, kind of what they call a pillar. And it can transport you from dimension to dimension. What's great about this book is that Remender manages to mix genres that don't necessarily always go together, but just kind of seamlessly moves through each story arc, showing us different dimensions, and heaps on the danger and the action with every single arc, culminating in what we are doing right now with Black Science, where all the dimensions that Grant has been to are kind of bleeding into where he is now and causing mayhem and havoc. And again, it's one of those books that centres around family. That's another kind of subgenre kind of deal that's going through a lot of Image books. They are very family orientated based books, and this is just the same, where you have an almost dysfunctional family, Grant being very focused towards his work and his science, but his wife and children kind of get dragged along with him. There are different versions that they meet of themselves, as I said, different genres of storytelling. You know, he throws in sci-fi in there, cavemen, robots, all manner of kind of alien life. And every time I say this, and I don't mean it any less each time, but Matteo Scalera, he is just a fantastic artist, where every issue is so jam-packed with detail, action. It feels very, you know, the momentum of the book, the layouts are just fantastic, and you just feel immersed in this universe that Remender has created. Think of Sliders, the TV show Sliders, but with the danger maxed up by 300-400%. Just a great sci-fi book from Image Comics. Okay, so we've made it to our top 3, or at least my top 3 of Image comic books of 2017, and there are titles that I do have problems with because they kind of reflect too much of what is going on in our kind of real life world. I use comics as my hobby and my passion to escape all that, all the horrible politics and awful things that, you know, people are doing in the world. I want to escape that, if only for a couple of hours, as I read my weekly comic book pull list. So when Hickman came out with Black Monday Murders, I initially went there with some trepidation. I had such a fantastic time with East of West, and that basically gave me the impetus to pick this up. It revolves around the whole world, the whole concept of world and international finance, which at the face of it sounds a little bit boring, but let's throw in some black occult stuff, and suddenly this whole kind of universe opens up and becomes that much more interesting. The concept of Black Monday Murders is there is this kind of dark cabal who are running the world's wealth and money and finances, and they are the ones that are responsible for stock market crashes and the like, and they all seem to happen around, I think it was kind of October, November time. And what Hickman does is he's obviously gone out and researched this very, very well, because he does use actual real life events that have happened in the world of finance to kind of back up his concept and theory that he's pushing forward in this book. Tom Coker's art, dark, brooding, atmospheric, just builds on this wonderful world of kind of alien demonic languages, demigods dealing with us poor schmucks trying to get through on our wages every week, every month. Just a fantastic story. It may not come out that often, but when it does, it's packed with great stuff, not only from the actual comic book paneling, but you get these kind of extra details, like memos that have been partially blacked out, or kind of chronological histories of these families that make up this dark cabal. Just a wonderful, very immersive, very intriguing read, and a way of looking at the way our world deals with wealth on a kind of global scale. And we reach number 2 of my top 10 countdowns for my favourite Image comics of 2017. And I bet when you see this you'll be surprised. You'll probably have thought this was going to be my number 1, because I've been a big champion of this book since the very beginning. It blows my socks off every issue, but this year it was just picked to the post. Talking about Rick Remender's Deadly Class. In its kind of sophomore year, we have not only a new set of students at this school for assassins, but we also still, and those who have read this, still holding on to a lot of the original freshman year from the first overall story arc that began this whole joyous adventure off. Set in the 80s, Remender certainly puts in lots of Easter eggs that pertain to the era that this story, fictional story, though it grabs lots of 80s references, which is such a big thing at the moment in media, the 80s making a big comeback. But this is just a fantastic multi-layered story of assassins, murders. There's romance in there as well. There's friendships, there's alliances, there are dirty dealings, backstabbings, the whole gamut, all wrapped up in the gorgeous art of Craig and Boyd. Always a firm favourite of mine that just reaches out to my kind of 80s nostalgic heart, and it's just a brilliant book, but unfortunately got pipped at the post for 2017's favourite comic book of mine. So shall we find out what was at number 1? Okay, we have reached the number 1 spot of my top 10 favourite Image comics of 2017. And we were talking earlier about how I don't like the way that a lot of comic books coming out at the moment clearly are veered to wanting a TV show. And then there are books that I think that should be made into a TV show. And then there are some titles that I'm thinking, why the hell has this not been made into a TV show? And this creative super team have done so much good stuff before this particular title that I really, really can't believe someone hasn't optioned a TV show for any of the volumes and titles that this team has put out previously. But my number 1 comic book from Image Comics of 2017 has to be Kill or Be Killed. Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips and Elizabeth Brightweiser bring us a story finally set in the present day, about our protagonist Dylan, who turns vigilante. And it's for a strange reason. He is one of those poor schmucks. His life's going nowhere. The girl he loves is seeing someone else, his housemate of all things. And his life just isn't going anywhere, and he decides to commit suicide. But through a kind of freak turn of events, he doesn't go through with it. Well, not that he doesn't go through with it, but it all goes wrong and basically just gets a bit of a knock on the head. But what transpires from that is that he is visited by a demon, who tells him that he's kind of spared his life, but to keep living he has to kill someone. I think it's at least once a month to be able to survive. So we have this build-up of a story that gets kind of bigger and bigger and more dangerous, of Dylan trying to find people that he deems unworthy to live. So we're talking about drug dealers, heads of child prostitution rings and the like. And what Brubaker has done is involve the mafia, the Russian mafia in this. And what Brubaker's done so well in this book is kind of confuse the reader, but in a good way. And that's with the whole demon thing, where we've kind of have to wonder, is the demon really real, or does our main protagonist Dylan just have serious mental problems? And through, especially this year, Brubaker has been dropping bombs after bombs, showing that his own family have had this kind of visitation from the demon in their lives also. But coupled with that, there has been a string of mental illnesses within the family too. So Brubaker kind of messes with the reader. We're never sure whether the demon is real or not, but the stakes for Dylan get higher and higher as his activities get more and more exposure. Again, it's another of those books that has so much thrilling stuff, action, but there's also sweet romantic moments in there. And the art by Sean Phillips and the colouring by Elizabeth Brightweiser just jump out of the page, or you could even jump into the page and be part of this particular environment that they have created. It's such a wonderful book. It's been so surprising on so many levels for me over this last year that I couldn't not give this the due praise, the due accolade of my favourite Image comic book of this year. If you're not reading Kill or Be Killed, there is something wrong with you. And that wraps up my top 10 Image comics of 2017. What did you think of my list? What would you have put at number 1? Or for that matter, give me your top 10. Maybe put in a few reasons why. If you want me to do more of these top 10 videos next year in 2018, please give this video a big thumbs up. And perhaps down in the comments section, give me some ideas of top 10s that you'd like to see. I've got a few ideas of my own if I ever want to pick this up, or if there's enough support from you guys to see more of these videos. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, thank you for watching. Bye bye.